بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. The third point to note is that to the mystic state is a moment of intimate association with the unique other self. Unique other self. Transcending, these are the qualities of this self, characteristics of this self. Transcending, encompassing, and momentarily suppressing the private personality of the subject of experience. Or this intimate association is transcending, encompassing, or the self within. The unique other self, it is transcending, encompassing, and momentarily suppressing the private personality of the subject. So the experience is overwhelming. And this is an experience in which the other self is involved, but that self is unique in the sense that that self is transcending. The self is nothing like what we see around us. In human world or in the cosmic world. Encompassing, it is Mohit, that self encompasses everything. Now, it's not clear whether these characteristics of this other self are from some other source or they are discovered within this experience. I'm not sure how they are discovered, if they are discovered within the experience. But these are the questions which we should keep in mind. Maybe they will become clear as we read along. So the unique other self transcending, encompassing, and momentarily suppressing the private personality of the subject of experience. Considering its content, the mystic state is highly objective. Highly objective. It cannot be regarded as a mere retirement into the midst of pure subjectivity. But here the question is, so this mystic experience is between self and the self, even though this other self is a unique self. Unlike any other self we know of. This other self is transcending, it transcends this world in its uniqueness, in its characteristics, in its being. It's all encompassing in its, I guess, in its power, in its knowledge. And obviously this self is nothing in front of this other unique self, so it is overwhelming experience. Okay, so that's the first thing he says. Okay, the second thing is that so this is the mystic experience. What we just said is the experience side of, or the process side of that experience, but as to the content, he's saying it's highly objective. considering the content of mystic, the content is highly objective. Now the question is, what is the content? What is the content of the? And it's objective, and what is the proof for its objectivity? These are the two important questions. I mean, if you are sticking to the Islamic tradition, then revelation is for him. The content of the revelation is highly objective, but the revelation can be hardly described as mystic experience. And then you have the experience of Sufi masters. So the content of their experience is found in their books. Especially, for example, in our tradition, maktubat of different Sufi masters, they sometimes, go into the content of their experience. But there are Islamic criteria to assess the objectivity. But what he is saying, what he is calling mystic experience, what is its content and how you determine its objectivity, that is to be seen. I mean, he has already given some examples of the objectivity of that experience, but as to the content, I'm not sure if he has said much yet. Okay, so but you will ask me how immediate experience of God as an independent other self is at all possible. The mere fact that the mystic state is a passive does not finally prove the veritable otherness of the self experience. That was the argument in the last point, and we dwelled on that enough. This question arises in the mind because we assume without criticism that our knowledge of the external world through sense perception is the type of all knowledge. Because sense perception is intersubjectively verifiable forms of knowledge, that's why we give high probability to that sort of knowledge, but that doesn't mean that the problem with the difference between the knowledge based on sense perception, the problem with knowledge based on sense perception, a difference, I mean, it's intersubjective experience, or intersubjectively verifiable experience. That's where its objectivity stems from. But on the other hand, mystic experience is, at least in its form, highly subjective experience, even more subjective than dreams and things, because dreams we can see that other people have dreamed as well. Through communication, at least we can communicate our dreams, but not enough people have typical mystic experience to give to make mystic experience credible, even to the level of dreams. So that's the basic difference between objective experience. It's nothing to do with whether we consider sense perception as the only form of knowledge or not. The main difference between our sense perception experience, knowledge based on sense perception, and knowledge based on mystic experience is that mystic experience is not intersubjectively verifiable, even not verifiable to the level to the level at which we can verify dreams, for example. So that's the question. If this were so, we would never be sure about the reality of our own self. I mean, as far as the reality for our own self is concerned, so the reality for our own self is known to us through intuitively. That certainty, even if it is not absolutely certain, there's, you know, um, there is a high level of certainty in there because it's a direct intuitive experience, and it can be double checked or counter checked with the experience of other fellow beings. Now, these two things I don't think are available for mystic experience. I don't think mystic experience has the sort of certainty to the subject going through the experience, because it's such an extraordinary experience. But even if people who are undergoing it have that sort of certainty, not enough people among human beings have experienced the mystic experience to double check it, for example, counter check it, or cross check cross examine it. So when mystics describe their experience, we can understand some, we can have some idea, but we don't have any experiential idea. At least not enough people, or many of us don't have that sort of experience. But as far as the self is concerned, everybody has experienced their selves. So even if we can't determine the essence of the self, the existence of self or the self experience, generally speaking, in broad terms, is not something comparable to the mystic experience. Okay. However, in reply to it, I suggest the analogy of a daily social experience. How do we know other minds in our social intercourse? So obvious that we know our own self and nature by inner reflection. That's what I call intuition, and sense perception respectively. We possess no sense for the experience of other mind. What are other minds? The only ground for my knowledge, the only ground for my knowledge of conscious being before me is the physical movement, similar to my own, from which I refer the presence of other conscious being, not just physical movement, but I guess physical movement, or we may say after Professor Royce that our fellows are known to us by to be real because, so that's the first is the physical movements, which the second is because they respond to our signals, so communication. Thus constantly supply the necessary supplement to our own fragmentary meanings. So we know the other minds. So through physical movements, observing the physical movements, which seems like the movements of our own, and unlike the movements of cars or other machines. So they seem like movement of something conscious. And the other one is communication. We communicate with each other. Through communication, in a sense, through communication, we directly experience other people's mind. Not as fully as our own, but in a way which is real. But if we so the question is, do we experience the other self they talk about in the mystic experience, the unique self, in the same way as the other mind? Do we have, so this unique self is not the physical entity, so we can't see that. Although, I mean, you can say that nature and human being is the sign of that being, but that's presupposing a lot of stuff there. So the main arena for verifying the existence of the other unique self is communication. But do enough people in the world have mystical experience with that self to regard that communication with that self at the same level as our communication with our fellow beings? Because our communication with our fellow beings, everybody has communication, but not everyone has mystical experience. Very few people have mystical experience. Or we may say after Professor Royce that our fellows are known to us. Real because they respond to our signal and constantly supply the necessary supplement to our fragmentary meanings. Okay. And then he goes on to say that a response, no doubt, is the test of the presence of a conscious self. The Quran also takes the same view. The Quran doesn't present the response as a proof of God's existence. Quran is God talking, so and we can't say that Quranic experiences are mystic experiences. So response, no doubt, is the test of the presence of conscious self, and the Quran also takes the same view. And your Lord said, "Call me, and I respond to your call. Uduni astajib lakum." And when my servants ask thee concerning me, whether salak ibadi fa inni qarib, then I am nigh unto them. Ujibu da'wat ad-da'i idha da'ani, and answer the cry of him that crieth unto me. So this communication, which is dua, prayer, is and the response is real, but that's not presented here as the sign of the existence of God. I don't think it's but we take Allama Iqbal's point that the response is at least one of the signs that this other being exists, response to our prayers. And unlike mystic experience, prayers are more general human experience. I think almost universal. Okay, let's stop here. I think we had covered this part before as well, but I think we were able to extract some other points this time. So I feel like we are ready to move to the next line from here next time, inshallah.